When you think of the space race, what comes to mind? The United States versus the Soviet Union, right? Neil Armstrong's giant leap for mankind, Yuri Gagarin's historic first orbit. It's a story of two superpowers locked in a celestial battle for dominance. But what if I told you there was another chapter to this story? A forgotten, almost unbelievable chapter, written not in the gleaming labs of Houston or Baikonur, but under the vast African sky. This is the story of the forgotten underdogs, the dreamers who dared to reach for the stars against all odds. Today, we're journeying back to the 1960s, to a newly independent nation with a dream as big as the cosmos itself, Zambia. The Cold War was a pressure cooker. On one side, the United States, pouring billions into its Apollo program. On the other, the Soviet Union, with its own formidable space ambitions. It was a high-stakes game of technological and ideological chess. Every rocket launch was a move, every satellite a strategic piece. The world watched, holding its breath, as these two giants vied for control of the final frontier. It seemed there was no room for anyone else. The narrative was set. You were either with America or with the Soviets. But history, as we know, is rarely that simple. It's filled with footnotes and sideline stories that are often more fascinating than the main event. While the world's eyes were fixated on Cape Canaveral and the Kazakh steppe, a science teacher in Lusaka, Zambia, was gazing at the same moon and stars and asking a simple, yet profound question: why not us? This is where our story truly begins, with a man named Edward Makuka, a school teacher, a visionary, and the self-proclaimed founder of Zambia's National Academy of Science, Space Research, and Philosophy. As Zambia prepared to celebrate its independence from British rule on October 24, 1964, Encoloso had a plan that was, to put it mildly, out of this world. He wasn't just planning a parade, he was planning a rocket launch. His goal, to beat both the Americans and the Soviets in the race to Mars. Yes, you heard that right. Not the moon, Mars. Encoloso's ambition was boundless. He envisioned a Zambia not just as a new nation on Earth, but as a pioneer in the cosmos. He declared that his astronauts would be the first to reach the Red Planet. Who were these brave astronauts? They were a small, dedicated group of young Zambians, including a 17-year-old girl named Martha Moyambwa, her two cats, and a missionary. Encoloso was their leader, their trainer, and their biggest cheerleader. He established a makeshift training facility just a few miles outside of Lusaka. The program he devised was ... unconventional. It was a testament to human ingenuity and the sheer will to make a dream a reality, even with the most limited resources. His methods were a world away from the high-tech simulations of NASA and the Soviet space program. But they were born from the same fundamental desire to prepare the human body for the rigors of spaceflight. And some of those rigors are truly terrifying. Let's take a step back and look at what astronauts in the 60s actually went through. It was brutal. Both American and Soviet cosmonauts were subjected to punishing physical and psychological tests. They were spun around in giant centrifuges, machines designed to simulate the crushing gravitational forces, or G-forces, experienced during launch and re-entry. Imagine being strapped into a chair at the end of a long arm, and spun around so fast that your body weighs 8 times its normal weight. You can't breathe, you can't see, and you feel like you're being crushed. It was a test of pure endurance. They were also subjected to isolation chambers for days on end, testing their mental fortitude. This was a dangerous business. The line between training and torture was incredibly fine, and not everyone made it through. This was the gold standard Encoloso was trying to emulate, but with a Zambian twist. Back in Lusaka, Encoloso's training methods were just as intense, if a bit more creative. To simulate weightlessness, he had his astronauts climb into a 44-gallon oil drum, which was then rolled down a hill. The idea was that the tumbling, disorienting experience would mimic the feeling of zero gravity. He also made them swing from a long rope tied to a tree, cutting it at the apex of the swing to give them a brief moment of freefall. It was dangerous, it was unorthodox, but it was driven by an unshakable belief. Encoloso believed that with this training, his astronauts, particularly Martha Moyambwa, would be ready for their journey. He had even planned the missionary's role, to convert the Martians to Christianity, assuming, of course, that they weren't already practicing it. The centerpiece of the Zambian space program was the rocket itself. Encoloso named it Dikolo 1, after Zambia's first president, Kenneth Kaunda. It was a sleek, 10-foot-long vessel made of aluminum and copper. The launch was set for Independence Day, a symbolic gesture to announce Zambia's arrival on the world stage and beyond. Nkoloso wrote letters to UNESCO requesting a grant of 7 million Zambian pounds and even appealed to private companies and foreign nations for funding. He was a master of promotion, generating a surprising amount of press coverage. Journalists from around the world came to see this audacious program for themselves. The world was watching, some with amusement, some with genuine curiosity. Could this tiny, fledgling nation actually pull it off? As you might have guessed, the launch never happened. The UNESCO grant never materialized. Financial support was non-existent. The international community, preoccupied with the Cold War superpowers, treated the Zambian space program more as a quirky human interest story than a serious scientific endeavor. One of the astronauts, Martha Mwamba, became pregnant and left the program to be with her family. Others grew disillusioned. The dream began to fade. By the end of 1964, the Zambian space program was officially defunct. The rocket was gone, the training facility abandoned, and the astronauts scattered back to their normal lives. Nkoloso's grand vision of a Zambian flag on Mars seemed destined to become nothing more than a bizarre historical footnote. For decades, that's exactly what it was. The story of the astronauts was often told with a hint of ridicule, a tale of misguided ambition. Nkoloso was painted as a crank, a dreamer whose ideas were too big for his reality. But is that the whole story? Is it fair to dismiss this incredible chapter of history so easily? I don't think so. When you look closer, you see something powerful. You see the universal human spirit of exploration in its purest form. It's the same spirit that drove Columbus across the Atlantic, the same spirit that pushed Armstrong to step onto the moon. It's the insatiable curiosity to see what's over the next hill, or in this case, the next planet. Nkoloso and his astronauts didn't have the resources of a superpower, but they had the same dream. They proved that the desire to explore the cosmos isn't limited by nationality, wealth, or power. It's a fundamental part of who we are. This story serves as a powerful reminder that history is not just written by the winners. It's shaped by countless voices, many of which have been silenced or forgotten. The official narrative of the space race, with its clear victor, ignores the passion and determination of people like Edward Nkoloso. His program may have failed in its literal goal, but it succeeded in a more profound way. It left behind a legacy of audacity, a testament to the idea that no dream is too big. In a world dominated by giants, a small group of people in Zambia dared to stand tall and point to the stars. Their story challenges us to look beyond the headlines and find the humanity in the historical margins. It reminds us that significant legacies can, and often do, emerge from the most unexpected of places. The astronauts may never have left Earth, but their story continues to inspire us to reach for the heavens. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into a forgotten corner of space history. It's stories like these that show us the incredible depth and diversity of the human experience. If you found this as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the hidden stories that shape our world. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Zambian space program. Was it a fool's errand or a beautiful, bold dream? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep looking up.